All right, City Clerk, could you go ahead and take the roll, please?
Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey. Alderman Fleming. Alderman Fisk.
Here.
Alderman Braithwaite.
Here.
Alderman Wynn. Alderman Wilson. Alderman Ruth Simmons. Alderman Suffredin.
All right, great. We have 7 members of the City Council here tonight. This evening is Monday, March 12th, 2018. Thank you, everybody, for being here. 2 of the council members that couldn't make it tonight are both at the National League of Cities annual conference in Washington, D.C., which is a good thing for them and a good thing for our city. So they will be back at the next meeting. We, as always, start with any mayor announcements. I just wanted to let folks know we had the State of the City address, the Chamber of Commerce, which has hosted this for, 40 plus years, held it last Friday. Coincidentally, happened to be the same day that Joe Biden and Chelsea Clinton decided to come and speak here in Evanston. But still, some people showed up, and we had a nice State of the City address. That address can be found on the city website. So if you're curious of my thoughts about the state of our city and the opportunities that lie ahead, as well as the challenges, you can find it on the homepage, cityoфevanston.org. So with that, City Manager, do you have any announcements?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I do. I'd like to ask our Corporation Counsel, Grant Farrar, to step forward. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, tonight is Mr. Farrar's last city council meeting as your corporation counsel. Have had a few weeks to reflect since he announced that he's leaving the city to start a new federal practice with GovHR USA, a local government staffing and management consulting firm. So we're very pleased that Grant has had this opportunity to move forward. But to think about the years that Grant Farrar has served as our corporation counsel, you really need to go back to the state of legal affairs in the city of Evanston in 2009. Several of you were elected to the city council in that year, and really, when I was hired as your city manager in 2009, there was no question what the #1 issue on the minds of the Evanston City Council was at that point, was to really evaluate what we were doing in the law department and look for solutions. And that solution came in the person of Grant Farrar. In his 8+ years as corporation counsel, he really transformed how this corporation is represented before the courts and in legal matters. Really took an operation that was really from a different time and brought it into something that I think we have all are very, very proud of over these last several years. The length of accomplishments for Mr. Farrar and his staff are numerous. Certainly, the township dissolution is the first that comes to my mind. The city council came to both Mr. Farrar and myself with a problem of how could we better provide those services, and through Mr. Farrar's good guidance and counsel, we were the first city in Illinois in over 100 years to dissolve a township. And in the several years since the dissolution, those services continue to be provided well for this community at much lower costs than they were being provided before. So Mr. Farrar has really distinguished himself for representing this corporation vigorously. I don't think there's anyone that would question the vigor that Mr. Farrar has represented us, the fairness in his representation, and really the stewardship of the taxpayers of Evanston. The amount of money that we have saved over his 8+ years as corporation counsel compared to how we were conducting legal business before is in the millions and millions of dollars. So Grant, you were my first hire as city manager. We have been through a lot over the last several years here in the city of Evanston, but I can say, as everyone who takes office here recites the Athenian oath with the goal that the city is left better than how you found it, you certainly can say that as you leave the city of Evanston for greener pastures, that it is better than how you found it. So on behalf of your colleagues, Mayor Hagerty and the City Council, I want to thank you for your many years of distinguished service to the cities of Evanston and present you with this plaque. Congratulations.
as Mr. Mayor, members of council, and city manager will know, sometimes I tend to get emotional. And I feel myself cresting a little bit as we speak. I just want to take a brief moment to thank everybody who sits on that dais, who has reposed their trust and confidence in me and my department. Everything that goes on in this city relies upon the good motivations, intentions, and stewardship of staff at each and every department, at every level of the organization. And it's been my blessing to work with a fantastic team. And we've done great things. So I want to thank each and every one of you. I also want to thank Mayor Tisdall, Alderman Holmes, Alderman Grover, Alderman Burris, Clerk Green, Judge Jean-Baptiste. I mean, they were also here with us as we went down this long road. And everybody here on the dais, here with staff and the other departments, we've built a record that everybody can be proud of. And I just, constantly wish to remind everyone that the people who work for the city, they're public servants. And they care. So, thank you. And thank you to my wife and my daughter, who are the big rocks and the big supports. Thank you.
Why don't you stay up there for a second, Grant? All right. Alderman Wilson.
You don't get off quite that easy. Thank you. City manager covered most of what I was going to say. However, you've taken us down a challenging road, and most of the work that you do is behind the scenes or in a courtroom or in a conference room. But I happen to be an attorney as my day job, as you are very well aware. But I really, really know and understand what it means to be well represented. And the amount of confidence I've had has been unwavering since you've joined us. I can't express my gratitude enough. You've always been there. I've appreciated your counsel. I want to miss that a lot. You thanked your family, but I want to thank your family because I know that this kind of a job is difficult. I know that you care. I know that you carry that around with you. And, you've been, to me, you've been a model public servant, and I'm very grateful for all of the work and diligence you've exhibited. So thank you, Grant.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Grant. Best of luck. All right, City Manager, anything else on your agenda?
No, sir.
All right, City Clerk, any announcements? I think we have an election going on.
Yeah, I just want to announce that early voting is still going on here at the Civic Center. You can early vote down in room G300 between 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. Every day this week. And on the weekends, you can come in between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. on Saturday and 10 and 4 on Sunday. Thus far, over 1,600 folks have voted, and we're hoping to see more folks come out to early vote. If you have a mail-in ballot, just make sure you return that. If you have a mail-in ballot application, make sure you return that by the 15th to the county clerk's office. And if you have an actual mail-in ballot, make sure you postmark that by the 20th. That's it.
Great. Excellent. Thank you. All right, next we turn to public comment. We have 5 people that are signed up for public comment. If there was anybody else that wanted to be, raise your hand if you're not on this list. Okay, so Doreen, excuse me. Okay, I'll add you, Doreen, here. Okay, so we have six speakers. Our rules are we set aside 45 minutes for public comment, no more than 3 minutes a person. So with the small number that we have today, everybody will get up to 3 minutes if you need it. I will keep track of the time and just nudge you if you get close to your 3 minutes, asking you to wrap it up. So with that, we've got Jackie Prince first, and then Adrian Willoughby, and then Carla Sutton.
Okay, this is odd. For the first time speaking up here, I'm actually nervous. Hello, council members. Thank you for this time to speak. I'm not speaking in regard to anything on the agenda. I am following up and speaking in regard to HH3. This was brought up in the meeting on March 5th. And I oppose the revisions to the panhandling, to the public panhandling and the solicitation ordinance, HH3 22018. And it's an ordinance amending the panhandling statutes. I oppose this because we are not, as homeless people, being recognized as residents or citizens for Evanston, and we are. Homeless people in Evanston who have been in the confines of the city within 30 days or more with the intent to stay are considered residents. So we have rights too. And those rights are not being met. Sometimes they are being met. Our rights are not being met, and we are not being protected, and I am asking that you start looking into making sure that not only are our First Amendment rights being trampled upon, but our human rights are being trampled upon. 775 ILCS 45 Bill of Rights and Homeless Act, which is an anti-discrimination bill, which is a Senate Bill 1210, which makes Illinois the second state in the country to enact a bill barring discrimination against people who do not have housing. I would like to see ordinances put into effect that for people who verbally abuse the homeless residents in the city, who mentally abuse them, and who illegally abuse us. Alderman Fisk of the First Ward mentioned Steve, who is a panhandler at one of our stores, and how his responses to people asking about his dog are not the best responses in the world. You have to realize that when we are out there, we are weathering extreme cold. Those of us that are homeless do not get a lot of sleep, so we are sleep deprived. We are also not living in places that should be inhabitable for humans to sleep in and live there. I would like to say on a good note that Connections for the Homeless and the new staff is making changes to help us in ways that they were not helping us necessarily, all of us before. So I would like to thank them for doing that and their efforts. My time up. Darn, I didn't even get to read what our First Amendment rights are, but I was nervous, so I'll do it next time.
You did great, as always, Jackie.
It's always been the same, and you guys can look it up yourself. Thanks. Have a good night.
Thank you, Jackie. And just so everybody at the dais knows in the audience, that panhandling ordinance that Jackie referred to is not on our agenda today. It actually was held, I believe, in Human Services Committee, so they want to talk about that some more. Adrian, welcome.
Good evening, Council. I wanted to just bring up two quick things tonight that relate to fiscal responsibility, I guess. I was listening to one of the prior council meetings, and there was an update on the Robert Crown project. And I'm completely for that project, but there was lots of talk in there about negotiating a 10-year contract with some unknown entity. And I guess I'm looking for some transparency. Could there be a one-pager produced of what powers have been given to the Friends of Robert Crown to negotiate things? It'd be ideal if we had a window in there where we could renegotiate ICE prices other than 10 years. As we're looking at budget crunches, and I know the city manager's talked about, let's start talking about next year's budget already. That's just something that kind of really jumped out for me as, what powers does this group have over a facility that's going to be city-owned in the long run and serve us? And the second one was, it's come up quite a bit here and there about selling the library parking lot. And property values in Evanston keep going up. And, as an asset, I'd like to say hold it, keep it. It'll be worth more in a little while. And it's one of the mistakes smaller countries make. They sell off their assets to the first people with big bags of cash. So I'd just like to say, let's hold that until it's really worth it to sell it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Adrian.
He misunderstood the crown thing. Can I just
If the city manager, do you want to just mention the crown? We normally don't.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, there was a reference made to the agreement, to the discussions with the Friends of Crown. There is an agreement between the city and that organization which delineates those responsibilities. And sir, Erica Storley, Carlos, is she sitting behind you? Erica Storley, the Assistant City Manager, is here, and I think she's still here in the room. If you'd like, she can get you the particulars for that. So, but to be clear, the agreement just talks about the relationship through the fundraising phase. The facility will be operated by the City of Evanston. So, if you want to perhaps get with them, Erica, at some later point.
And I would say that any agreement that has ice time or any other things should have an escalation year to year in those agreements, I would expect. So anyway, we will be open and transparent about all of that. Let's go with Carlos Sutton, and then we have John Prince, and then Tom Hodgman.
Good evening, Mayor Haggerty, City Manager Bobowitz, and Clerk Reed, members of the City Council. I'm here to solicit your support for 2 items on the agenda and to solicit your consideration and opposition for a third. I'm speaking in support of Ordinance 42018, that you will support the lease of city-owned property located at 2603 Sheridan Road to Evanston Lake House and Gardens. I think this is a wonderful opportunity for the citizens of Evanston to have a facility that we all can benefit from. And I'm thinking that all of you will support us in making sure that this is something that will be proud for Evanston and all the residents of Evanston. Secondly, I want to thank you for your support of A3.1, the Pilot Landlord Rehabilitation Assistance Program. Many of the landlords, especially elderly, have found it very difficult to maintain their properties in the current increase of the property assessments. This will give us a chance, and those that need this, to do the necessary repairs. And I particularly want to thank Mrs. Rainey for that consideration, and I hope that you all will support and make this pilot program one that we all could take advantage of if necessary. I want to speak in opposition to the A31. I do not think that the senior citizens and people with disability need an increase of $1 for taxi fares, and I'm also concerned about you limiting it to the borders of Evanston. I wish you would not have that increase, and I wish you consider that many of the people who need cab service are not only taking services to Evanston, but nearby communities or adjoining communities and shopping places. I thank you for your consideration on these matters.
Thank you, Carlos.
I guess we can speak to that when I don't want to put it off, but it's such an important program.
Absolutely. We're going to speak to it. And I'm sorry, because I broke custom, and I shouldn't have broken custom tonight, which is this is your opportunity to speak to the council. It's not the council's opportunity to engage in conversation. So I apologize for doing that. We will continue as we normally do with just straight public comment. Tom Hodgman's up next. Excuse me, John Prince is next, and then Tom Hodgman, and then Doreen Price. Is John, okay, I guess John Prince isn't here. If John Prince isn't here, you're up next, Tom.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Clerk Reed, Manager Bobowitz, members of council. I'm Tom Hodgman, the president of Evanston Lake House and Gardens, and we're here just to say we're really pleased that the council will be considering the lease of Harley Clark tonight. And since you guys voted to approve our response to the RFP back in November, we've been hard at work gearing up for our campaign and the work of restoration on the building. In addition to working with city staff and the legal staff on developing the lease, we've conducted our own RFP for architectural design services and a fundraising consultant. We received a number of qualified responses and enthusiastic responses on those RFPs, and we'll be selecting firms very soon on both fronts. The people that we're going to be engaging are very well regarded, well known. They've had great success in Evanston and Chicagoland, both in the architectural realm and in fundraising. We've also been working with our programming partners, continuing developing the educational and cultural programs for the building. And there remains tremendous interest from these educational groups and community groups in the space. And just yesterday, we had a lot of fun. We went to Go Green Wilmette's Going Green Matters. It's an event for environmental groups. And we had a booth there, and there was just tremendous interest in the project. Lots of people came by from Evanston and surrounding communities. It was really fun to get out there and talk to folks. And finally, we've been talking to our current donors, and they're ready to fulfill their pledges as soon as the ink dries on the lease. Regarding the lease, I just wanted to mention a few things that have come up as it goes for consideration. There's been some discussion of the minimum fundraising benchmarks, and I just want to reinforce those are just that, they're minimums. And we developed them with the city to reflect sufficient funds for code compliance and also recognizing flexibility if we need to conduct the work in phases. We have every intention to raise the money necessary on a faster timeline and far exceed those minimums, but these things can be uncertain, and we'd rather surprise everybody on the upside than have to, revise things later. We think that's a low risk for the city. If we can't hit our benchmarks, you guys will always have the option to cancel the lease. Finally, we're not here asking for money. Or any increase in taxes. We just want your guys' cooperation, enthusiasm, and support for our fundraising efforts to convert Harley Clark into our gateway for the Great Lakes. And we're eager to take the next step. And thank you again for your thoughtful and deliberate consideration of the lease and finding a solution that fulfills everybody's interests. Thank you, guys.
Great. Thank you, Tom. All right, and last speaker is Doreen. Doreen, it is price, right?
Yes, and since you know me so well, and I like holding up the back end after everyone else has said all the good things, maybe I should apply for a caboose position with the City Hall. The things that affect me a lot have been discussed already and also will be discussed. And others have brought up points concerning the lake property issues of trying to protect your property versus ensuring that everyone else who is affected is also equally forewarned so that they're part of the process. And that has also affected me in terms of what we call is the the water table issues, because I'm just a little further in from the lake. Fortunately, I was blessed. It was an inexpensive house at the time, and a small house. And I'm blessed, but I'm also cursed with the fact that things are treated differently if you're not on the lake shore. And it may not be intentional, but now would be the time when you're discussing ordinances to now expand those ordinances to include notification of anyone in that floodplain area, direct floodplain area like me, who now, because a neighbor who bypassed zoning, did something that, in terms of, I defer to Eleanor to explain more if you need it, but she ended up putting extensive amounts of concrete, which led to my getting flooding. Now, the city's not going to help me with regard to that, I'm sure, and she's going to deny that she has to help me, and whatever she does to reprimand, to fix it, may fall short of what actually needs to be done, because she doesn't seem to have thought of me in the first incidents where she was replacing a fence. This bodes in terms of thinking very seriously about the lakefront. When anyone talks about protection, it's one thing, and Eleanor wanted clarification, but the other thing has to do with replacement. And she used the term replacement. And in the past, people like me would have been, I know I've lived there since '83. You tell their neighbors when someone applies for a zoning, and I wasn't told. And then she proceeded to go past the request of a replacement in my book, which would be the existing fence, and extending it to a point where she's causing me harm. And this has been going on for almost 2 years. So I think it's really, really important that you use your wisdom that you're gaining with regard to the lakefront to apply to mostly everybody. And there's other people who are so-called downstream who are suffering right now. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. And there will be more in terms of these builders who build these super places. And there's one being built down for me who's doing drainage, but not everyone's going to be. So zoning has to be alerted to the fact that if someone is going to build a palace, really twice the size of the original, maybe 3 times the size of the original, they better do what this guy is doing in terms of doing it right. I also recommend,
we're up, if you can wrap
real
up in like
fast,
15
I also
seconds.
recommend upping zoning requirements for buildings in general, so the leads and everything else, you have greater efficiency and you will attract better builders. Right now, things are I saw that there was only average energy efficiency with regard to downtown Evanston. That's unacceptable. And then last but not least, look up 702 Reba. I don't know whose ward that is, but there's a 27-room building that is going through what I don't understand, deconversion. I found that on LinkedIn. That could be a possible place to do some affordable housing as condos or whatever.
Great. Thank you, Doreen.
You're welcome.
All right, and thank you everybody that spoke this evening. As always, I know the council appreciates everybody's thoughts and perspectives on these different issues. We're going to move now into special order of business. We have one special order of business, SP1, what I'd like to do is have. Let's see. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and have Eleanor Revelle, Alderman Revelle, just read us in on SP1.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move introduction of Ordinance 42-0-18, authorizing the city manager to execute a lease of city-owned real property known as the Harley Clark Mansion, located at 2603 Sheridan Road, with Evanston Lake House and Gardens. The lease is for 40 years, and Evanston Lake House and Gardens will be required to raise $2 million in funding over 3 years and then make code-related improvements to the mansion, opening the property for public use by May 2023.
Okay, so that's been introduced and it's been seconded. Is there a discussion that the council would like, or would the council like any kind of briefing by city staff on the work they've done?
I believe that our assistant city manager has a brief introduction.
Okay, let's go ahead and do that. Erica Storley's coming to the lectern.
Mayor Hagerty, members of the council, city clerk, and city manager Erica Storley, assistant city manager. I've been working with our corporation council and the Evanston Lake House and Gardens group since December or late November, when we were directed to negotiate terms of a lease. The main points of the lease are included in the memo that you were given tonight. 40-year lease. The Lake House and Gardens group is committed to raising with the funds that they think they need to do Phase 1 code improvements, which would open the property for what they're going to be evaluating over the next few months, which is their initial evaluation of what kind of programming that would look like, what kind of zoning would be needed for the kinds of programs that they want to do, and then make those changes related to getting the building up to code. ADA provisions are included in that, so the property would have to be made ADA accessible. That's an important point, as it is not currently that way. And then further the benchmarks that have been outlined for the 3 years of fundraising do allow for the city council to have check-ins with them, to get reports on how they're doing, and have them come to meetings to explain how things are progressing at set durations of time. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Can you just describe how the benchmarks work that are in the agreement and what they're set at, and how you arrived at setting them at those amounts and at that sort of rate annually?
Sure. So we initially had higher benchmarks for the first 2 years. I believe it was $500,000 for the first year and maybe $750,000 for the second. I can't remember, but those the Lake House and Gardens group wanted those to be both in cash and pledges. We were more comfortable with having those fundraising donations be in the form of cash. So in order to have a meet in the middle. We decided to lower the benchmarks for the first 2 years, but the final benchmark at the end of the third year remains the same at the $2 million. But each year the pledges have to be in cash, not just cash and pledges.
So why didn't the pledges, though, equal what the proposal was, which I thought was 4.8 or 5.2 million total?
Are you referring to the RFP? Or?
The RFP, they submitted a proposal to the RFP, and I thought in that proposal they said we're going to raise, $5 million. And yet this contract to turn over the mansion and give them a 40-year lease to this group, I think only said $2 million.
That's correct. They do believe that they can raise the $5 million. They just weren't comfortable setting any benchmarks towards that.
Okay, let's go with Alderman Revelle, and then we'll go to Alderman Wilson and Alderman Fisk.
Okay. So just some sort of introductory remarks. So we've heard from Tom Hodgman about Evanston Lake House and Gardens unflagging enthusiasm for creating an environmental education center at a repurposed Harley Clark House. We've heard about the behind-the-scenes work that they've been doing to identify some well-qualified firms, both for architectural services and fundraising consulting services. We've heard about their supporters who are ready to make good on their pledges, and about the exciting programming that environmental and education groups envision for the house. So the lease agreement that's being introduced this evening is really a final step in a very long public process that I think would have discouraged just about any other group without the commitment and the passion that Evanston Lake House and Gardens has shown lo these many months. Evanston Lake House and Gardens is not asking for any city funding. They are asking for a go-ahead from us to let them raise the funds that will be needed to bring the building up to in code compliance and then open it up for programming. They do have every intention to continue the fundraising, though, to complete the renovations, the more, if I could use the word cosmetic kinds of improvements, the moldings and the windows and things like that. So ultimately, Mr. Mayor, I do believe they're going to raise at least the $5 million and do the full renovation that they'd anticipated. But now it's really the time for us on the City Council to express our support for their vision. And this really, it's about so much more than preserving a really picturesque old building. It's about creating an exciting space for hands-on experiential learning that takes advantage of the Harley Clark's unique location on the dunes at the edge of Lake Michigan. It's about providing additional space for ecology center programming, space for learning opportunities that are not available in a regular classroom setting, and a space to nurture the next generation of Great Lakes stewards. So I really, I look forward to our discussion, and I look forward to our approving the lease agreement so that Evanston Lake House and Gardens can go out and do the great things they have in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Revelle. Alderman Wilson?
Okay, and my main point was, I wanted just to make sure it was clear that this is introduction tonight. We're not approving anything, and we're going to be back on April 9th for that, to discuss actually approving or not.
Alderman Fisk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I will support introduction so that we can have a full discussion the next time at council. But it would be wrong for me not to express my serious misgivings about the project. I do have some questions. It wasn't clear to me who would be maintaining the building for the next 3 years. Mr. City Manager, could you tell me?
The city would continue to maintain the building and the grounds for the next 5 years, or whenever the group raises enough money to then complete the phase 1 improvements. So if that happens sooner than they have scheduled it, then the city would stop our portion of the interior maintenance if they were to make those improvements sooner. But if those improvements are made on the schedule that's laid out in the lease, we would be maintaining building systems, heat, alarm systems, things like that, in addition to mowing the grass and the trees and everything for 5 years.
Well, I'd like to have an estimate of the cost for doing that.
Sure, we can put that together for the next meeting.
Okay, let me think about this for a couple minutes, and I may come back depending on where the conversation
Thank you,
goes.
Alderman Fisk. Alderman Rainey?
That Judy's question was my question, but I'm going to take it a step further now. Will they have occupancy during those 5 years?
Well, the building is not suitable for what we all would consider occupancy. but
Possession, let me
They
put it
will
that
be
way.
a tenant of the space, and they will have the opportunity to have contractors come into the space, have potential donors come into the space, all having them sign a waiver of liability. So they, for all intents and purposes, have possession of the space, but we will continue to maintain it.
So the answer is they will have full possession and occupancy of the space. They will have an executed lease and more or less title to the space. They'll have possession.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Control. They will have control of the space.
Yes.
Okay.
Alderman Fisk?
Do we have any idea what pledges have already committed to them that are just waiting for this to be signed?
Tom could probably correct me, but I think it's in the neighborhood of $100,000.
So that's pretty much what they had when they were here the last time. I mean, the pledges have not increased.
Correct.
Since last time.
I believe they are waiting for a signed lease to begin kicking off their official fundraising campaign.
No, I understand that, but from what Mr. Hodgman said, as soon as the lease is signed, then they will go after the pledges and convert those pledges into cash. But I would have assumed that they would have been being pretty busy collecting more pledges while the discussions were going on, and that doesn't seem to have happened. I feel really uncomfortable about this, and it doesn't make me happy to say that, but it is. I mean, we sit up here as fiscal stewards of the community, and I would love to see the program go forward. I would love to take a leap of faith, but we're already taking a leap of faith on Robert Crown, and I need something here to to tell me that this is going to work out, because I don't see that happening, and I'm uncomfortable with the idea that at some point in the future we may have to ask them to leave after they've made, and other people have made a significant $100,000 for a lot of people is a significant pledge, but far short of the money that they need. So I'm not sure I even feel comfortable getting the ball rolling without some assurance.
Sure. One of the points that we negotiated was that any pledges or cash would be held in an account similar to sort of how the Community Foundation runs, where if the project were not to move forward, that those funds would then be moved forward to some sort of different need, and then not so much returned to the people who have pledged them. So that is sort of an escrow account, if you will.
Right, but some of the dollars will be spent, though. I mean, that's as this is going forward in phases.
Yes.
They wouldn't go back? They wouldn't go back, or they would go back if it didn't go forward?
Yeah.
My understanding is that an account would be set up such that when the funds were donated, they would be donated for the purpose of Harley Clark, but if Harley Clark project did not move forward, it would be sort of set up in the form of a foundation where those funds could then go to a different project.
But their own foundation, not a city project.
I think they're intending to partner with the Community Foundation to identify what that looks like.
Okay.
And because this is a special order of business, Tom, as president, if you want to add anything to this conversation, I'm going to let you come up here with Erica if you want to add anything that you hear. Okay. We got several lights on. Alderman Sufferton.
Sure. Erica, what happens if they hit the benchmarks, they do well, they get the $2 million, we're open 2023, and then it stalls out? I mean, do we still have a 40-year lease in a building that doesn't look like the pictures at all?
Yes.
All right, Alderman Rainey.
Wait, it stalls out, and then I didn't get what was the answer?
His question was if the Phase 2 improvements aren't made in terms of renovating the remainder of the property. So the code improvements is the minimum that we're requiring as part of the lease. If those are made and the facility opens in 3 years or 5 years or whatever it is, but by 5 years, what happens to the property after 5 years if the additional improvements aren't made? There's no requirement in the lease that those additional improvements be made, so it's left to their discretion at what point they would make them. They have identified that part of that is that they would like to potentially have some of those services donated in kind, which would not necessitate cash or pledges. So there was leaving that door open for those kinds of improvements to be made without the need for cash. But I think it's also a need to determine how well everything goes and then see how they do going forward.
Tom, do you have any plan for that? I mean, what happens if it stalls out and we started and it's open to the public, we're code compliant, we've got the building open, the initial enthusiasm's over, what do we do?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, our intent is to get it all done in one phase. But recognizing that it's hard to predict how fast these things move, we set the benchmarks in a way that would get us to code compliance so we could have an open, occupiable, safe, restored landmark building on the lakefront. Now, there are a lot of things inside the building that we'd love to do eventually to make it really, really special. And if those might take some more time, and if they do, and we don't get it done in the first phase, we would seek to raise money on an ongoing basis, just like any nonprofit does. We're going to have a development person on staff. We're going to be raising money continually. And, we think it's going to work out. And if it does stall out, it might take more time than 3 years.
I mean, do you anticipate it gets easier when people can be in the building and see the potential firsthand? I don't know enough about how these fundraising campaigns work to know when the pressure points are where, I assume that you'll have a big initial chunk, it'll go well. That'll hopefully get you to the $2 million within the 3 years. And then is there an expectation that it would plateau or that there would be some foundation that would come in with a big chunk? Just help me understand.
The benchmarks in the lease that's not our campaign goal, right? Our campaign will be designed around our needs for the building. But we felt like if we had enough to get it open and operating and fix the major systems needs there to get it code compliant, that would be a very significant investment in the building and justify us taking occupancy and sticking with the lease. That could take more than 3 years. We have every intention to do it much faster than that. So we were trying to build in that flexibility if we do need to phase the project in the lease. Okay. And like you said, I think it would, having people in the space and seeing the programs will help a lot with fundraising if we get to that point where we get code compliance and then we can demonstrate the potential of the place.
Okay. But the way this is structured, the city of Evanston could end up in a 40-year agreement with a code compliant underperforming asset on the lakefront. Is that correct? I know that's not what anybody wants to have happen, but the way this is drafted, is that possible?
I would refer it to the legal staff, but I guess if that's the way it's worded, then that's possible.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Alderman Rainey?
Is there a provision, and I haven't read every word of the lease, is there a provision for a sublease with the owner's permission?
I believe there is. I'll ask Corporation Counsel to speak to that.
Alderman Rainey, there is the provision for assignments at the back end of the lease, subject to the advised review and consent of the city.
Right. Is there a requirement for the tenant at the beginning of the lease to secure insurance?
Yes.
So as soon as they take occupancy, they have to have insurance?
When their contractors mobilize on site to begin work,
right. Well,
they have to produce proof of insurance.
I think one of the amendments we need, if this thing passes, one of the amendments we need to make to this lease is that the moment this lease is signed, contractors or not, the minute this lease is signed, the tenant must secure tenant insurance like any other tenant. regardless of pledges, regardless of anything, they have to have their own insurance in addition to whatever. I mean, we have our own insurance, but they have to have insurance. There's just no two ways about it.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey. Alderman Ravel?
I wanted to respond to a couple of things, and I'm not sure if I remember them exactly. I guess Alderman Fisk, you sort of made it sound as though you were going to be surprised if they raised any money at all. I mean, if that's the case, those fundraising benchmarks, we'll know very soon whether there's really no support out in the community for the fundraising, and we can terminate the lease even at year one if they're truly not demonstrating that there's the support that we all believe there is. And then there was Alderman Suffredin's use of the word underperforming. I mean, I guess it seems to me if the building is code compliant, it's got exciting programming happening in it. I wouldn't call that underperforming. I would say it would be nice to have the molding all fixed, but it would still be a great asset for the community.
Sorry, I'll just clarify. I didn't mean underperforming in a pejorative way. What I mean is that we've got the money in, we've got this building safe and open and ADA compliant, and then the wells run dry, and now we've got ongoing maintenance issues. We've got things that are eating up money that isn't going to go to making it look like the pretty pictures that we all hope this place will be like. And that's my concern, and I think it can be overcome, but I mean, that's just a responsibility I think we all have, and I support this. So I'm coming at it from a person who supports this, but I think it's a concern that we all need to acknowledge and attempt to overcome.
All right, Alderman Braithwaite, did you want to say something? You turned your light on. And then
I think the issue is going to be addressed when you break down what our maintenance costs are going to be, and side by side understanding what their improvement costs look like. It just seems a little bit blurred in my mind, so I'll be looking for that when you provide your report.
Okay.
Thank you.
Alderman Fisk?
Remind me what the rent is, the yearly rent is?
It's $1 per year.
I think based on $1 per year, should the time come that they can no longer operate rather than a sublease, I think it should revert directly back to the city, not allow them to lease out after that.
Just for clarification, I think that the intention of the sublease was that they have nonprofit partners that may occupy the space along with them to provide the programming on site. I don't think that their intention is that they would no longer have the vision that they currently have and then sublease the property to somebody else, although I can't entirely speak for them.
And that's fine, but I think unless we actually have that revert to the city and the council at that time can take a look at it, I would feel much more comfortable with that.
We could include such provision in the lease.
Okay.
So it's been introduced. There was a second to that. Obviously, there's been a lot of conversation up here. I think it's great that the Lake House and Gardens Group were here to sort of hear this. This would come back, if it passes for introduction, it would come back onto the agenda, I think April 12th, April 9th, on April 9th. I mean, just from my perspective, one thing that certainly concerns me is the proposal was put forward from the group at $5 million. We've got a contract agreement to lease a city asset for 40 years for $2 million. You have to collect $250,000 year one, $250,000 year two, and then $1.5 million year three to get you to $2 million. And I know that the folks are saying, hey, we think we're going to do $5 million, but $5 million is not what's in the agreement. The agreement says, hey, I'm only going to put $2 million. So that's a concern that I have. But I don't have a vote. So anyway, but I just wanted to put that out there because I do think, look, this is a city asset. It's been a contentious one for a long, long time. People want to figure out a solution for it, and I really applaud the Lake House and Gardens Group for developing a solution. I feel like it's being walked back a little in terms of, the amount of money that we're seeing in this agreement to be raised, and that concerns me because there's a lot of risk, and I want to see this group be successful. But there's a lot of risk. There's risk to the community. There's risk to, reputational risk to this group and to the people that are involved in this group. And I want to see it be successful, but share some of the concerns that were expressed today. So let's go ahead, seeing no more lights, and just do a roll call vote on the introduction. And this is the introduction of SP1, Ordinance 42-0-18.
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
No.
Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson. Alderman Sufferton.
Okay, so SP1 Ordinance 42-0-18 passes for introduction with a 5-1 vote. Excuse me, 6-1. I've got Alderman Braithwaite here. 6-1 vote. All right, excellent. We're going to go ahead now and move on to the consent agenda. Alderman Rainey, can you take us through start with M1, which is the minutes, and then take us into APW, please.
I might be a little slow on this because we had no committee meeting tonight, so I have to. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First item is approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting of February 26th. It's for action. Administration and Public Works did not meet tonight because we had no quorum, so bear with me. The payroll, February 5 through February 18, in the amount of $3,309,410.71. The bills list is $2,946,656.87. I have received notice that there is a change in the remaining bills. Let's see. Okay, so the period ending January 30, credit card activity, not including Amazon purchases, January 31, and Erica or Ashley, I'm doing the amendments that you gave me. $154,726.19 is the Bank of America. Then BMO is $3,629.40. This is for action. It does not include the Amazon credit card activity. So are we going to take a vote on that right now?
Let's go ahead and take a vote. Is there a second to that? Okay, Clerk Reed, could you take the roll on M1, A1, and A21?
Alderman Ravel.
Aye.
Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson. Alderman Sufferton.
All right, M1, A1, A2.1 all passed the Evanston City Council 7-0.
Amazon credit card activity ending January 31, 2018 is corrected to be $12,482.89. Move approval.
All right, Clerk Reed, could you take the roll, please?
Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Wilson. Alderman Sufferton.
All right, so A2.2 passes the Evanston City Council 6-0 with one abstaining, and that's Alderman Sufferton.
Does anybody have anything on this agenda that they want off, that you know of in advance? All right, just before I start reading it, say so. All right, A3.1 is the Pilot Landlord Rehab Assistance Program. The proposed program budget is $200,000 for the 2018 fiscal year and will be provided from the Affordable Housing Fund, and I'm going to move approval.
Again, we're gonna do this as consent agenda, everyone. Yep.
A32, staff recommends City Council approval of a first-time application for a sidewalk cafe permit for Pono Ono Poke, a Type 2 restaurant located at 1630 Chicago Avenue. This is for action. A sole source purchase is requested of Cisco Systems network switches. This is from Sentinel Technologies. The cost of the hardware, software, and supportive maintenance is $304,029. The costs will be paid over 3 years in 3 equal payments. This is for action. Staff recommends approval of the 2018 calendar of special events contingent upon compliance of all requirements as set forth by the special event policy and guidelines. This year's calendar includes 4 new events: a very popular marshmallow drop at James Park, the Evanston Green Ball at the Ladd Arboretum, a 2-date concert series at Canal Shores, and a 2-date block party on Dempster between Chicago and Hinman for action. Staff recommends, this is A3.5, staff recommends that City Council authorize the manager to execute a 1-year contract extension for pavement patching with J.A. Johnson Paving Company in the amount of $600,000. This is a municipal partnering initiative. This is for action. For action also this evening, staff recommends the City Council authorize the manager to execute a 1-year single-source contract for the purchase of concrete and flowable fill with Ozinga Ready Mix Concrete in the amount of $42,500. Staff also recommends the council authorize the manager to execute a 1-year single-source contract for the purchase of hot mix asphalt with Builders Asphalt in the amount of $43,000. A3.8, staff recommends council authorize the manager to execute a contract for the 2018 Green Bay Road landscape maintenance contract to the low bidder Landscape Concepts Management Company in the amount of $27,744. Next is A3.9. Staff recommends council authorize the manager to execute a renewal contract award for the 2018 mowing services in the to the low bidder Clean Slate Chicago LLC in the amount of $28,875. Funding for this project is the general fund budget. This is for action. Fourth quarter financial report. Staff recommends City Council accept and place on the fourth quarter financial report for 2017 on file. We're being asked just to accept this report and file it. Resolution 16R18 increases the total fiscal year 2017 budget by $1,100,000 to a new total of $324,842,986. I don't know if anybody wants this off for an explanation. Hearing none, that's for action tonight. Resolution 11R18 is a motor fuel tax funds used for roadway resurfacing project. That is for action. Next are required resolutions by the state. We already did something to this effect, but we're being required to do it again. Resolution 12R18, the 2016 Motor Fuel Tax Fund transfer for general maintenance of streets for action. Resolution 14R18, 2017 Motor Fuel Tax Funds transfer for general maintenance of streets. This is for action. Resolution 15R18, the 2018 Motor Fuel Tax Funds transfer for general maintenance of streets, also for action. Staff recommends City Council, this is for introduction, adopt Ordinance 27018, which authorizes a 3-year renewal of a lease agreement between the League of Women Voters and the City of Evanston. The lease will be from June 1, 2018 through May 31, 2021 for first floor space, room 1030, at the Lorraine H. Morton Civic Center. The monthly rent will be the most affordable, $240, with a 1% increase each year. Ordinance 18018, amending the City Code, Section 117.1, adding subsection contractor debarment, suspension, and prohibition contracts. This ordinance codifies a procedure to debar or suspend contractors for just cause. Debarred or suspended contractors may not bid, propose, be awarded to, or perform work on a contract with the city. This is for introduction. City staff recommends City Council adoption of Ordinance 38018, which amends Title III, Chapter 17-9, regarding city senior citizens, persons with disabilities taxi program amendment. Includes an increase in the participant share from $4 to $5, and changing the boundaries of the program to within the corporate boundaries of the City of Evanston. This is for introduction and action. However, I am not moving to suspend the rules and sending this back to committee for our next meeting in April. Okay? Pardon me?
Could you just state the reason why? I know that we didn't have a
Well,
meeting
because
earlier.
there's some controversy about increasing the fee.
Okay.
So we haven't had a meeting, and there are members absent tonight, so,
You want to hold it? Okay.
pardon me, I'm taking it, yeah, I'm just going to send it back to committee,
Okay.
okay? And, yes, so anyway, ordinance 36018, decreasing the number of C1 liquor licenses for La Maquina Cafe at 1620 Orrington Avenue. They're requesting a downgrade of its liquor license from C1 to C for introduction. Ordinance 37018, increasing the number of Class C liquor licenses for La Maquina Cafe at 1620 Orrington, increasing Class C liquor licenses from 25 to 26. This is for introduction. Let's see. Ordinance 33018, amending, this is off the consent agenda and will be explained by the committee chair. Ordinance 15.
Alderman Rainey, I'm sorry, which one did you just?
I'm going to take off
A14.
F2, and I'll explain why.
F2, okay.
Okay? I'll explain it.
A14, thank you.
Okay. Ordinance 31018 is Class X. Let's see. Yeah. Yep. I'm going to take that one off also, and I'll explain that later. Ordinance 34018, authorizing the city to borrow funds from the Illinois Environment Protection Agency Public Water Supply Loan Program. This will authorize the city to borrow up to $25 million. Debt service will be paid from the water fund. This is for action this evening. City staff recommends the City Council adoption of Ordinance 11018, which amends Title I, Chapter 8 of the City Code to reflect current city operations with respect to Finance Division. That concludes the consent agenda for Administration and Public Works.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey. Alderman Nguyen, would you like to take us through Planning and Development Committee?
Items P1, Ordinance 39018, granting major zoning relief for a new two-story, 134,200 square foot community center at 1801 Main Street, the new Robert Crown Community Center. This is for introduction. This includes a number of zoning changes that need to be made in order for the building to fit in the appropriate spot. For item number P2, is Ordinance 40018, amending the City Code, permitted obstructions in required yards, general provisions relating to front porches. We decided to hold this in committee because we had some commentary from members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and we'd like to read what they have to say and perhaps discuss it with them further. So that's held in the committee. We voted to introduce it and return it to committee. The final item is P3, Ordinance 12018, amending City Code Title 4, Chapter 13, Floodplain Regulations. I move introduction on that.
All right, thank you, Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Rainey, would you like to take us through Economic Development Committee?
Yes, I would. Let me find it here. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's see. 01, Economic Development Committee. Applications, we request your approval for applications for the Evanston Great Merchants Grant Program. Staff in the Economic Development Committee would appreciate your approval to provide financial assistance through the Great Merchants Grant Program totaling $56,290.50 to 7 Evanston Business District areas and associations. Central Street Business Association has been approved by the committee for $10,000. West End Business Association, $10,000. Howard Street Business Association, $10,000. West Village Business Association, $6,241.90. Dr. Hill Arts Business Association, $10,000. Central Evanston Business Association, $9,823.60. And the Black Business Consortium of Evanston North Shore, $225 was reimbursed to them already. The funds are going to be taken from the Economic Development Business District Improvement Program. I move approval for that. Application for the Entrepreneurship Support Program has been approved in the amount of $6,779 for the following Evanston businesses. Pop Pour Sip, $2,484. Fresh Prince, $1,795. Agerstortle Dessert Shop, $2,500. Funding will be from the Economic Development Business Retention Expansion Fund. We request your approval. C3, 03, is the Storefront Modernization Program application for 1101 Howard Street. The Economic Development Committee supports approval of financial assistance through the Storefront Modernization Program for facade renovation of this building in an amount not to exceed $14,000 for installation of new windows, entry door, and glass. Funding will be from the Economic Development Business District Improvement Fund. This is for action. I move approval. Oops, let's see. There's one more. This is 13R18, authorizing the city manager to execute an economic development grant agreement with Blue 1647. The committee recommends the city council adopt this resolution authorizing the manager to execute an economic development grant agreement with Blue 1647 in an amount not to exceed $75,000 to help facilitate job creation opportunities for primarily low and moderate income Evanston residents in information technology fields of work. Staff recommends use of funding from the General Fund Economic Development Division Workforce Development Account. This is for approval. That concludes the Economic Development Report.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey. Is there a second to the full consent agenda?
Second.
All right. Clerk Reed, could you please go and take the roll?
Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite.
Aye.
Alderman Nguyen.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson. Aye. Alderman Sufferton.
All right. The consent agenda passes the Evanston City Council 7-0. Okay, and we had, just to recap, we had 2 that were held. A11 was held in committee. That's the taxi cab program, so that'll be discussed next time APW meets. And then P2, which was dealing with the front porches, has been returned to the committee, so that will be in P&D. So the other 2 for discussion tonight amongst the council, Alderman Rainey, if you take us, first is A14 and then A15.
Mr. Mayor, I move introduction introduction of ordinance 33018, amending the city code, section 346, by creating the new Class F2 liquor license.
Second.
Right. Then I'd like to speak to it.
Okay, Alderman Rainey.
Mr. Mayor, we're introducing this, but sending it back to committee for discussion among the whole committee, because we've never done that yet. Because we were not able to discuss it at our last meeting because the applicant asked that it be withdrawn. So we've never discussed it as a committee, which we would like to do,
Okay,
because we have some changes we'd like to make.
okay.
Okay? And then we have the next one, A15, which is the Class X liquor license. So I'd like to move introduction of ordinance 31018, creating the new Class X liquor license. I'd like to move introduction. Oh, no, it's already for action here, but we would like to send it back to committee for discussion, if that's possible. Because we have a little problem with that.
Okay, so can we have so how does this work? If
Well,
it's for-
hopefully our city attorney, as he rides out on his white horse, will let us do that.
So I move that we return it to the committee.
We need some fine tuning of the ordinance, the brand-new ordinance, which we overlooked at our last meeting.
Alderman Wilson moved to return it to the committee. I second it.
Well, thank you very much. See how easy that is?
Okay, so all in favor of returning A15 to the committee?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so on a vote of 7-0, A15 will be returned to the APW committee.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that wraps up all the items that we had on our consent agenda. We're going to go ahead and do call of the wards. We'll start with you, Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey.
I only have one report, and that is that that place that is on Howard Street called the Peckish Pig that the city invested so much money and time in, purchased the building from the city of Evanston and is no longer a noose around the city's neck. So let's give Peckish Pig a hand. Yay! And I thank all the members of the council who voted for it, and hopefully those members of the council that didn't vote for it will appreciate the fact that it was a good idea.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey. Alderman Fisk. Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to quickly share that March 22nd, our partner Northwestern is hosting a free career fair. It's going to be hosted at the Hilton Garden Inn, again, March 22nd, from 1 to 4.
Great. Alderman Nguyen.
No report.
Alderman Wilson.
Just quickly, I know it's been talked about a fair amount here and there, but appreciation to the mayor and all the staff and all the employers who were at the job fair. Just attending that or just stopping by, seeing hundreds and hundreds of kids in this long, long line, but very, very motivated and excited about the prospect of getting a job. So we do a lot of things. We get a lot of criticism, but we also do a lot of things that are wonderful and terrific. And that was a good reminder of one of the things that we're out there doing. It's a big positive impact and exciting to see. So thank you for everybody involved in that program.
Excellent. Alderman Sarverton.
I'd like to request that the Rules Committee have a discussion about how we schedule our committee meetings and whether there's a way to do it more efficiently, whether all of our committees are necessary. And I point out that Administration and Public Works didn't meet tonight, and somehow we still got through the whole agenda as a full council. So if we have a discussion about that at Rules Committee, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Our City Manager, Bob Quitz.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, next week, the 19th, you have your third Monday meeting, normally at 7 p.m., with the council be interested in starting earlier at 6 p.m. On Monday, the 19th? All right, very good. So we'll change the notice to 6 p.m. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Alderman Wilson, would you go ahead and lead us into executive session?
And, Mr. Mayor, because we only have minutes on the agenda, I'm going to suggest that we just go ahead and defer on that till we have a next regularly scheduled exec session. So, yeah.
Anyone
So I will
opposed
not
to
make that motion. Okay.
Okay, all right. I think that's met with smiles. Is there a second for adjournment? All in favor? All right. Anyone want to stay? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. Thank you, everyone, for your work up here tonight.